Great taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.
Welcome to Great Taste on KRUU 100.1 FM, the solar-powered voice of Fairfield, Iowa. We're coming to you live from Green Building Supply, right? We do that the first Tuesday of every month, and this is our Italian Love Fest. So I hope that all of you are here for that purpose, right? Yeah. All right, good. So every week, Great Taste comes to you from KRUU, except that's the radio show, except for once a month on that first Tuesday when we broadcast live from Green Building Supply. And otherwise, we are hoping that you guys always listen in every week when you're not here live. You do? Great. That's awesome. One person said that they did. So that's fantastic. All right. So I'm Steve Boss, your host every week for 60 minutes of delicious tastes and radio. And with me for this Italian festival is Liliana Rosano. Hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad that you're here. And she happens to be authentic. She's from Sicily, so that works really well. Ed Malloy is here.
Hi, Steve.
And you are here because?
I like Italian tomato sauce and I like making it.
Perfect. That's a great reason. And you, sir, have been here before. Pete DeSico.
How you doing?
And what are you going to be doing?
Well, I'm just riding shotgun here to Ed. Really? Okay.
Okay.
And he's half Italian, even though he sounds Irish, right? Am I right?
I can explain that.
From Long Island. It's not Long Island's not my scene.
Well,
I can tell you that right now.
It's a good point. I am a New Yorker.
Jersey Shore.
And I think all New Yorkers are part Italian by being New Yorkers, but half of my family, and part Jewish. But my mother is Italian. Her father immigrated from Rome. Her mother was born here, but her father, or my grandfather, emigrated from Naples.
Oh.
And my mother is a strong Italian woman, so we grew up only thinking we were Italian. Didn't know what this Malloy name was about.
Your poor dad.
And you?
So what was the last name? The Italian name?
Faticone. Faticone.
Faticone. Faticone. Oh, okay.
And you, sir?
Well, I had a grandfather who was born in Naples, the DeCicco.
Oh.
And then my mother's family is pure Calabrese, and they were all born in Calabria. And I'm very proud to have part Polish. I had my Neapolitan grandfather somehow fell in love with a Polish woman in the turn of the century, and we got a little Polak in us.
Come a little closer.
A little kibasi.
Cabbage.
Exactly. But that's part of, as we all know, the Northeast. It's all mixed together.
Yes.
Okay, so do you approve?
I approve totally.
Okay, that's good. So there were several periods of Italian immigration, actually, and I guess what was the first period, like in the 1890s?
Yeah, there was the big, wave of immigration started, and until 1950, there was most of people from southern Italy came to U.S., mostly New York. Yeah.
So Calabria. Also Puglia.
Puglia, so Campania, Calabria, Puglia,
and Sicily.
Sicily, yeah, for sure. That's the southern Italy, definitely.
Did many people at all come from the north at any time?
Yeah, definitely some from Turin, from the north, but mostly from from southern. Yeah.
Okay, so now the food that you grew up eating, would you call it traditional Italian or would you call it Italian American?
I think I'd call it traditional Italian, particularly on Christmas Eve, which is a seafood feast in Italy and in Italian. So we had a big seafood feast, which would include eating eel, among other things, and scungio, the squid. And so, yeah, I think surrounding the holidays, very, very traditional. But, the day-to-day was a simple food because I think Italian food in many ways is a simple food. And I know Pete has some, great recipes for us tonight that we're going to experience that. And then, I grew up with the Italian sauce being the base component for about every dish, at least in my grandmother's family. So we'd go to her house on Sundays and she would have this big pot of fresh, tomato sauce. My grandfather had a garden at the back of the home where he grew all of his herbs, his basil, his oregano, his tomatoes, his peppers, all of those things. So a small garden. So everything was fresh ingredients. And so growing up, I didn't pay too much attention to cooking. I learned first Boy Scout cooking, which was bacon, eggs, and Bisquick on a stick. When I got to college and had my first apartment, one of the first things I did was I called my grandmother. And I said, "Grandma, how do you make sauce?" So she started to tell me these different ingredients, and she didn't have any measurements. She just gave me the ingredients, and I said, "Well, how do I figure this out?" She said, "Oh, you figure it out." So my recipes evolved, and I think I've got it pat now.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about you, Mr. DeSico?
Well, I think I have some of the background he does. The eel is definitely a Neapolitan thing. My Neapolitan great uncles used to do pickled eel out of the canals of New Jersey.
Oh, God.
How long did
Of
they
course,
live?
they didn't. Well,
60s too.
we're not gonna. Well, they were in the area way before the 20s, but we won't get into that. They're from Manville, New Jersey, which was the capital of asbestos. So
Near the Exxon refinery.
yeah. We won't get into environmentalism right now. It's too. Needless to say, I have many my siblings and cousins that are environmentalists now after that experience. But anyhow, a lot of my influence came from my mother's mother, who was a wonderful, beautiful woman. And in America, she was known as Angie Burdell, but her Italian name was Angelica Bertadelli. And she had a big classic kitchen. And when I was a little kid in the 60s, I was thrown in that kitchen a lot. So I kind of grew up with that, experience of making homemade pasta, homemade sausage, picking out of the garden in the back. The family had, my grandfather started the first Texaco station in the Pocono Mountains, which was, of course, across the street. And so she'd always cook for the men in the garage, and pepper and egg sandwiches. We never had to go to a deli. Mm-hmm. So that's really where I infused my cooking from, is my grandma Berdelli.
And when I was listening to Ed describe the garden that had all those great ingredients, I thought immediately of you because all of your ingredients come fresh from your garden. Many of your ingredients.
Right. I have two gardens. I have a garden in my palace in Utopia Park, which I've had for years. And then I have up in the Eco Village area, I have an auxiliary garden where we've been growing. We have the most unbelievable garlic that we've been growing for 15 years. It's like this, and tomatoes. And so I do eat out of a garden in the summer. And this here is sauce that we canned at the end of the year from organic tomatoes and fennel flowers. We can talk about it later. It's like a ambrosia or a sina, as they say.
Are you impressed?
Really, I'm feel home. I feel really home tonight. Yes, I'm really happy to be here.
Now, Liliana spends quite a bit of time every year in Sicily. So you're there maybe like 6 months?
I would say half time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 6 months.
And while there, I imagine that it's just. Well, I've been
food.
right. It's all about food, but I've been to where you're from, Catania, and it's an absolutely amazing, beautiful city, and it's right by the sea. And okay, I can't even. I know. I can't even talk about it because it's just so emotionally overwhelming because it's so beautiful and wonderful. But. It's got to be hard, isn't it, a little bit,
Yeah, because it's all about food. You start in the morning thinking what you're going to cook for lunch. Actually, the day before, my mom starts talking, we're going to cook tomorrow, and then the whole day is really, it's everything, social life rotates about food, around food. Yeah.
And one of the things about Liliana is that she writes a lot about food. She writes about a variety of subjects, but she does write a lot about food, and she writes for some very impressive publications that you may have heard of. Il Gambero Rosso, for example, also one of the biggest dailies in Italy, La Repubblica. Did I say all that right?
Yeah.
Not bad. It's okay. And we're going to hear a little bit later about her recent experience in New York, because there's a lot of very interesting stuff going on in Italian cuisine in New York right now, and especially with Sicilian cuisine. So that's something that we'll be talking about a little bit later. But first, I think we better talk to Ed about his sauce.
All right, so we wanted to just set the mood here, so I wanted to get the garlic started first. Everybody smell the garlic?
Fantastic.
So what we're going to do is we're going to saute some natural ingredients that we're going to add to the tomatoes, to the sauce. And we've started with probably about a quarter cup of extra virgin olive oil that we've just heated, and we're starting to saute some fresh garlic. There were 3 cloves that were chopped up prior to this. And then we are going to add, I've got to get used to this stove and its speeds here, but we are going to add some fresh oregano, some mushrooms, some fresh bell pepper, and some parsley. We couldn't get fresh basil. We do have some dry basil that we'll be adding a little bit later, but these are going to be great. So we'll get those in there and started as well. Sorry about that, Steve. Like I said, I'm getting used to the speed on this one here.
I love to hear that sizzle. And you told us before we got on the air that you used to do a radio show many years ago when you were in college, right? And what did you do there?
Well, we called it was a political show, and it was topical, and we did it on a Sunday morning. We called it the breakfast show, and we literally had a hot plate set up near the microphone, and we cooked eggs and bacon on the air. You could hear the sizzle over our conversation. It was very effective. And we'd have people come to the studio and help us eat our eggs and bacon. So it's been a while since I've cooked on the air, but so far so good.
Yeah, and this is so gorgeous. I just want to make sure that everybody can see that. Really, really, really beautiful. So how do you think you're doing with your temperature? Need any adjustments, or you're okay?
I think we're okay for right now. We add a little bit more olive oil, and we'll only be using a wooden spoon through this whole process.
Now, and I wanted to know if you caught what was going on when you added that olive oil or not.
I did not.
Okay.
Everybody's, how much more? How much more?
No, it wasn't how much more.
Like my grandmother said.
It wasn't how much more. It was like, what's important to understand is that Ed has the right kind of elbow, and that means that it just bends perfectly and keeps bending.
No, we're fine, and the taste of the olive oil really adds something to the whole sauce as well. Because what we're doing with all of these is this is going to be a real flavor component to it, and we're going to make kind of a quick sauce this evening. Actually, when I make this at home, after I've combined all of the ingredients and done sort of the final touches and brought it up almost to a boil and kind of gotten it going for just a few minutes, I'll bring it down to simmer for 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours. And constant stirring, adding a little water from time to time, and then it's a reduction. Because in our family, it really wasn't referred to as sauce as much as it was gravy. So it had that stronger consistency, thickness of a gravy. And when you try this on your own at home, do that, let it cook down for that amount of time, and you'll see exactly what I mean. The other thing too is we're going to blend all of these ingredients along with the tomatoes this evening to sort of get it down into that state where it's all well combined as well. A lot of modern sauces right now are chunky tomatoes and whole herbs, and that's I think that's another direction to go with a sauce. Again, this is a little bit more traditional, where they're getting it down to a thicker gravy.
So, I'm curious, what type of sauce does your mother make?
She makes like the traditional ragu sauce, like with meat. That's for on Sunday. Every Sunday she makes this sauce. There's no exception. Like every Sunday, she didn't skip one.
Wow. And so does it have beef, pork, lamb.
Usually beef, it's with beef, yeah, and it starts with, like a little bit, she fries some, onions and then beef, and then it cooks for actually almost, the night before, so she cooks the like 5-6 hours. Yeah, that's the
And tomatoes from Etna.
tomatoes from Etna for sure, that's, a must.
The other thing that my grandmother would do from time to time is she would make the meatballs and just put them raw, just right in the sauce, so they would cook for probably about 30, 45 minutes on their own in the sauce, so the sauce would take on all those meat fats and things and those flavors.
Yeah, with the meatballs also, like you have like one meal in with pasta and then the meatballs.
Well, I happen to know that we are going to have our own style of meatballs, a little bit different than the traditional style, right? Come here for a second and
Okay.
let us know about that.
Yes, so when I heard he was making sauce, they asked Steve said, can you help out? And I said, sure, what do you want? So I decided to do stuff we could use with sauce. And he said, we have to be vegetarian, which I understand. I live in a primarily vegetarian community, as we all know. And so I decided to make some vegetarian meatballs. And so we already have some made, and I'll show you. They look wonderful. So everyone can have some. Okay. And what they are, and they come from a recipe. There was a tofu company here 30 years ago. That the Kaplan, Great American, the Kaplan brothers found it, and apparently
American Pride.
they had competitions for people to make tofu recipes, and so this is sort of from the recipe that won the competition that many mothers in this town fed their kids over the years. And so simply we're taking tofu, we're using a little egg for a binder in this case, and really just whatever you put in a meatball. We're putting in parsley and some garlic and spices.
Grated cheese.
And grated cheese, and mixing it all up. And what you do is you roll it. I rolled it in cornmeal and then fried it to kind of give it that meatball crust. And then I baked it in this very special sauce. And so that is the first dish.
But there was a little bit more to that because you experimented actually.
Actually, what I did is I actually threw a party last night for a monk and about 10 of his friends, a buddy of mine from the Modern American Monk group that's here. And so it had to be very vegetarian, and they're kind of picky, these guys, actually. Very sensitive, highly refined nervous systems. And so we tested 2 different types just for fun for this birthday party. So we did these, and then I did something which was equally as good. It's a little more difficult to make, and it was lentils and quinoa and grated sunflower seeds. And then you add in the Parmesan cheese, and I like to add in, parsley, spices, and I always add fennel because I love fennel. And I remember growing up, sausage would have fennel in it. Fennel is a great complement to tomato, and it's, pacifies the fire in the stomach, so to speak.
Goes in the sauce.
And it goes in the sauce.
Yeah.
And so that's what we have. And so that's dish number 1.
And we would have also considered another non-meat meatball, which is made with eggplant, except that Pete's going to tell you why we didn't consider that. And so I'll just mention to everybody, if you're interested in that, there's a tremendous recipe in Domenica Marchetti's The Glorious Vegetables of Italy for eggplant meatballs. Okay, now why aren't we doing eggplant?
Well, because we made an eggplant parmesan. And excuse me, Ed, I'm going to show that real quick here for everybody. And we got the camera. This is it. It's very watery. It's something you really should put on pasta. Okay? And so this is what I call eggplant parmesan rustica. So it's kind of like rustic, and it's very low in, let's say, fat. It's really almost like the topping of a pizza put together. So what I do is I grill eggplant real quick. I like to use a grill to do this. And I grill peppers, and I grill portobello mushrooms, and I grill red onions. And then I basically layer this stuff together with a soft mozzarella. And thanks to Steve, we have buffalo mozzarella that's in here, and Parmesan cheese, and this great homemade sauce. And so you just, after everything is kind of quickly, grilled and salted and peppered as it's grilling so the flavors come out, and then you kind of layer it, and it's a very light, it's almost like baked vegetables with a little bit of cheese in it. And, nothing like a great classic eggplant parmesan where it's breaded and all that, but this is a lot lighter. It's just like having a vegetable with a little cheese in it.
And if that's not enough,
Well, since we have this great sauce from the Italians of Long Island, we decided, well, we'll do another veggie dish that's a classic, and it's a version of what we call pasta cece, which is pasta and chickpeas, which I grew up with on Fridays often. The vegetarian version for Fridays. She knows it. And what I like to do is chop the liacano kale. Liacano kale, is that how you say it?
lacinato.
Lacinato, okay. I chopped this kale, and so it's chickpeas and kale in the tomato sauce. I didn't bring anchovies. Anchovies is always a must when you cook kale, anchovies and garlic, but I wanted to keep the place kosher. And so anyhow, that's going to be a great complement to his wonderful sauce.
That's awesome. So I want to make sure I got this straight. So your family still eats this type of dish on Fridays?
Friday usually is like no meat, and we do like beans and chickpeas or lentils. Yeah, it's a typical Friday.
Okay, Steve.
Yep.
Next phase. So we've cooked and combined some of our initial fresh vegetables and spices, and I'm going to put them in the blender. I'm going to add the cans of, what did you get? What kinds of tomatoes did you get? Can't read that.
Oh, Muir Glen whole peeled San Marzano style.
San Marzanos. Okay. So any Italian-looking tomato in a can from a reputable company will do. So let's see. We'll get this.
Okay, so I'm just going to repeat for everybody. What we've got in this, we have parsley, we have garlic, we have some mushrooms, and we used shiitake, didn't we? Is that? We did. Okay, and oregano, fresh oregano, a red pepper, and fresh basil if we would have had it, which we didn't. And then we're going to add. If you're doing this at home, you'd probably only need one 28-ounce can of whole peeled San Marzano style tomatoes, or if you're lucky enough to be able to get some real San Marzano tomatoes, that would be great too. Or if you're really lucky, look for, okay, I'm going to have Liliana close her ears for a second. Look for these organic Spanish tomatoes in jars, because they're amazing. So, but nobody heard that, okay? Yeah, right, she didn't hear that. Or if you could find this, you and I know this, and that is at Ribalta, they use Pianolo tomatoes, right?
From Campania, of course, yeah. They are also San Marzano, also good, but they make different.
It's like they make this pasta. If you go to New York, make sure you go to Ribalta and have their, you can do it, Ed, it's okay, and have their pasta with tomato sauce. And you'll kind of, here's what'll happen, I think, because I think I had a typical reaction. So you get this little plate of pasta that immediately I flashed on the price on the menu. I think it was $23. And it's this little plate of pasta with some, tomato sauce mixed in and a couple of fresh basil leaves on top. And I was like, okay. And then I took a bite and I was like, oh, okay. It was like, it was kind of like anything more would have been way too much. That's how incredible it was. I mean, it was just absolutely amazing.
How about the pizza over there?
Okay, yeah, the pizza was fantastic too. Yeah, it's Liliana and I both love this place in New York, Ribalta, and there's so many places which we are going to get to, but Ribalta, they know how to do it. I don't know. And let's see, let's see, the chef and the owner are from, where are they both?
From Naples. They're both from Naples, so their cuisine is Neapolitan, really authentic, and the pizza is really a good one.
Yeah, and didn't the chef actually go on some type of crazy pizza diet at some point?
Yeah, that's why he lost like, I don't know how many pounds, 100 pounds, something like that, with this pizza.
You think we can hear that or not? You have to talk louder? Okay.
So he lost, I don't know, I forgot how many pounds with this specific like pizza diet, which I don't know if it's a marketing thing, but
I think it was I think I remember talking to him a little bit, and he said
lost.
he wasn't really. It wasn't like constant pizza. It was like it was a major part.
Like for lunch, for sure, he ate pizza, but that definitely was like a marketing strategy.
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting place. It's a great place, and the smallest plate of pasta for $23 you can find, and you'll be very amazed with it, and happy. Okay, so you blended everything up, and you put it, and you like it really smooth, don't you?
I do. Yeah, again, it'll cook down nicely. Everything is blended. We'll add some more dry spices here in a minute, and then just let it all simmer and come together.
And we're going to use that on, Pete, what are we using that on? The sauce? Add sauce? What's that going to be on?
Well, we're going to use it in whatever we can. We're going to use it. We're going to put it on the new meatballs we're going to make, and we're going to use it on the pasta cece. And then if we serve, we'll put it on as extra sauce on whatever we're serving.
I think if you use that word, I hope nobody heard you say "if we serve," because there might be a rebellion here if that's the case. But I also want to remind you that at some point somebody might want to put some water on, or else there will be some type of revolution here at a point. Now, I notice also, Ed, you have carrot juice here.
Yeah, there are a few more things that I'm going to add right now, and some of those are some of the other dry spices. I've got an Italian seasoning mix that'll have some of the basil that we weren't able to put in. Pete also has some very nice dried basil here as well. We're going to put a little bit of fennel seed, and again, that's going to give it a distinctive flavor. It really draws a lot of those flavors out. It also adds a little bit of a sweetness. We're going to put a little bit of carrot juice in and a couple of teaspoons of sugar, and those serve to kind of cut the acidity of the sauce and just really make a nice smooth flavor. We'll add a little bit of salt and pepper, but that's about it.
And if you want
Gonna
to,
let her cook?
I'm going to ask how many people here make their own tomato sauce? Let me see. Okay, do you ever use carrot in your tomato sauce? Anybody? How about this? Anybody use fresh carrot in their tomato sauce? Yes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and you do it because it adds a little sweetness, right? And does what Ed says. It cuts the acidity a little bit too. It's really nice. Yeah, it's great to do that.
Yeah. Mike, no, this was my addition. Yeah.
What made you think of it?
So the question was, what made you think of putting carrot in?
It really was just an inspiration. Again, carrot's another vegetable. It's in the same color palette family, and I think I knew it had that nice natural sweetness to it, and I do like adding some of those elements to kind of cut the acidity of the tomato flavor. And the first time I did it, I said, "This is a winner, and we're gonna use this."
All right. Anybody else have questions? Let me know, because I can probably come to you, or you can come up here, because no one will be able to hear you actually, because the microphone is pretty one-directional. So yes, come on up here so we can get your question on the air.
Does cooking it a long time also cut the acidity?
It does, because you're blending in all of those other flavors as opposed to just getting the tomato flavor. I think there's probably more to the science of it, but that's my estimation, I guess.
Don't get in the way of a man with a big iron skillet. That's for sure. All right, so I'm going to let you guys do your thing for a little while and interrupt me if there's something that you want to tell us, some critical step that comes up. But I'm going to talk to Liliana right now a little bit about, people are worried that the water isn't on for the pasta yet. I see. Okay, yeah, I understand that. So I'm going to pass that along, that there's a lot of worry people here that the water isn't on for the pasta, and I'll let them deal with that. I think that one of the reasons is that there's one pot that's big enough to hold the water, and it's being used for tomato sauce at the moment. So
yeah, we have another pot.
We have another one. Good. Okay, so we'll get that going eventually. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the world of Italian cuisine right now, because there's actually, you and I were talking before yesterday, and I used a word, and you said that's right, and basically I said there seems to be some type of renaissance going on.
You mean like in Italy or both?
Both.
Italy and New York. Yeah, there is like a renaissance of what they call like this nouvelle cuisine, Italian cuisine, both like in Italy and in New York. And I noticed a lot in New York because since I moved here, I was very interested in the Italian food, how it evolved in the U.S. And I found out that along with the traditional cuisine, there is this this nouvelle cuisine that is kicking off in the United States. And in New York, all the new restaurants are opening. They're not just Italian restaurants, but they're focusing on the region. So they're gonna be like the Sicilian, the Neapolitan, and they're really like focusing on the regions, like not just on the generic Italian restaurant. And there is both like a new cuisine, which is a little bit lighter and a little bit more with they went so far like Bottura is a molecular cuisine, so he went a little bit too far, but it's like that.
Wait, so I'm gonna move you down here just a little bit because I think we have more people down on this side. So hopefully you guys could still hear over here, but I think we need to get here for a little bit more volume. So let's talk about that for a second because not everybody may know who you're talking about. You just mentioned Massimo Bottura.
Massimo Bottura, which was last year like the first. He has this restaurant, the Osteria Francescana in Modena, and it was the world's best restaurant.
Right, it's on the 50 best list. It was the #1 restaurant in 2016. Now it's #2 in 2017. We could get into all that at some point about the ridiculousness of a list like that, but that's okay. We don't have. I think you just got my opinion.
But he represents this molecular cuisine, and but in Italy, what's going on is like this very like contemporary, modern with like a light approach, and also like a little bit of fusion with some influences. And in New York also, I noticed this like a modern kind of cuisine and the regional, especially like a regional. They're trying, each restaurant to bring the background from different regions, both from northern and southern Italy.
Okay, so now the people that are opening these places, because you just were there for a week in New York and you ate at several different restaurants. And so, for example, one of the places that you ate at was a Sicilian restaurant. In Oyster Bay, right?
Yeah, I went to like Oyster Bay, and then this is like a Sicilian cuisine, like a modern, and there's traditional dishes, but also with like a modern approach. And I went to this other restaurant, Norma, which is in Manhattan, and it's like more traditional, but from the west coast of Sicily. So he makes couscous, so it's different even from the east coast. And that was my trip. Also, I went to this T4, which is Mediterranean cuisine, and they do like raw fish, and they import everything. That's what they say, like from Italy every day. Like the fish comes from Italy every day.
Okay, so what we need to do is we need to, I think, give people a little bit of background because unless they've listened to the show, which I think only one person said they did every week. Anyway, we try, we do that, but we've talked about the cuisine of Sicily before. But let's give everybody just a little primer because Sicily is a very unique. Oh, something else is going on here.
What's happening?
Yeah, why?
Well, we're getting ready to make the eggplant parmesan rustica now. So we're very quickly going to saute eggplant, onions, and pepper, and portobello mushrooms. And then in this black pan here, we're going to do black pan parmesan. I just made that up.
That's what I thought because you told everybody already that you grilled it.
9F eggplant parmesan. And it could be done on a grill. And then we layer it with the cheeses and just bake it real quick.
There's more mozzarella di bufala in the fridge.
Phenomenal.
Okay, it's in the fridge. Yeah, it's in the fridge. As a matter of fact, we need to taste that because remember we were trying to do the. How did you taste the other?
Good enough. It's good enough.
Good enough. Okay. All right. So let's talk a little bit about Sicilian cuisine because Sicily has, I would say, a much more varied cuisine than any of the other Italian regions. And that's for a very specific reason, because
Yeah, because of different dominations. You know, this island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, so everybody, you know, came
and
there.
conquered it.
Exactly, and then so everybody left, you know, his own cuisine. The Romans, the Greeks, the Normans, the Arabs. So each dish, each Sicilian dish, represent a domination. Basically, the Spanish with the empanadas, because we have what we call empanada, and it comes from you know, the Spanish domination. Or of course, you know, the eggplants from the Arabs, and everything is really has his own history.
Right. So we've got, you know, the Norman conquest. There were the Spanish, as you said, North African influence from Morocco and other Tunisia, right? And where else? What am I missing?
The French, so with
French.
the Normans, the Spanish, the Roman, the Greeks, the
Turkey?
Turkey also, yeah, because all the
The Ottoman Empire, right?
yeah, exactly, all the
Right.
other Middle Eastern
Yeah,
came.
so it's an amazing cuisine, actually. And, you know, I'm sure that you could get all kinds of tremendous debates going on where you have the people from the different regions talking about why their cuisine is better than...
Jewish too, because we have some kind of pastrami that Palermo is very famous for the street food, and he has a Jewish community, so there is the, you know, kind of with the pastrami, the Sicilian pastrami. Yeah.
That's amazing. Sicilian pastrami. I've never heard of that. Have you ever heard of that, Dennis? Sicilian pastrami? No, I haven't either. So I would like to try that sometime.
It is, because again, Palermo is really the European capital of street food. If you go there, you will find all these vendors, and they have all this street food, and that's very interesting.
And there's a tremendous market there, and I'm not going to say it right. Vucceria, is that?
Vucceria, exactly. You say right. That's the Ballarò, Vucceria. Those are the two famous open markets when, you know, they sell every day. Everything basically. Yeah.
I have to say, if anyone knows where this article is, you will be a hero to me. Otherwise, I have to get a hold of Ruth Reichel, which I've been meaning to do for years now, because I read when she was the editor of Gourmet Magazine, in one of the issues, which was about Italy, she always wrote, because of the editor, she always writes a little article at the beginning, you know, talking about in this issue, da-da-da-da-da, right? And she wrote this passage about going to the Vucceria market and about this elderly man who was making tuna sandwiches. Now, at the beginning, if you didn't read the whole thing, you just kind of were skimming it, you know, and you just, like, a guy making tuna sandwiches, who cares, right? But this was literally one of the most beautiful pieces of food literature I ever read. It was like one paragraph, but it stuck in my brain so much that I've actually looked through my collection of gourmet magazines over and over again over the years. I just did it again about 2 months ago. I still can't find it. And I've searched online all over for it, because I love food literature, but there's really for me anyway, there's not a whole lot that sticks with me that I just really am captivated by. And that one paragraph was one of the most amazing pieces of food literature that I've ever read, and it was all about this standing in line, waiting to get up to the front of the line where this elderly man was making a tuna sandwich, and she was explaining the whole process, because he was making this from fresh tuna. So it wasn't that he was opening cans of tuna and making a tuna sandwich.
It's a human experience, definitely going to the market in Sicily, for sure.
Yeah, and it's still a way of life, isn't it? That every adds.
I need a volunteer to taste the sauce to see how we're doing. Someone would like to come up and taste while we're.
Boy, I'll tell you what.
Wow.
Thanks.
Steve,
I'll take care of it.
It's a little warm.
Yeah. Really good. As it cooks, it's going to get even better, I can tell. And for me,
What do you like?
a little bit of salt.
That's what I want to know.
Yep, that's it. Really, really good. And thank you. You guys missed that, so. Okay, so it's still a way of life in Sicily, isn't it? And most of the areas I think still in Italy where people go to the open markets on a regular basis rather than shopping in the hypermarts or whatever. I mean, people do shop in the hypermarts,
Yeah,
but
we have the malls now, but of course every day they go to the open markets for fresh fruit, vegetables, and everything.
And there's
it's
the
a way
vendors.
to meet people,
Right.
to get together.
and there are all the vendors who specialize. There's the cheese vendor, and there's the
One section exactly like there are different kind of vendors for sure.
right. And this is what you want to do when you go and you travel. How many of you have had that opportunity to experience those markets in whatever
Just
European
came back
countries?
from Sicily.
He did. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That's great. And that's what you want to do when you go to these countries, not just Italy, but Spain, France, wherever, Greece, wherever there happens to be, is you want to go where people are actually meeting with each other and interacting with each other, because that's where you're really going to experience the country itself. And I was talking about this with somebody just yesterday, because we were talking about our experiences in Italy. Actually, I think you'll get a kick out of this, because I don't think I've told you this. So the first time Rachel and I went to Italy, we landed in Malpensa, and we picked up a rental car, and we walked out to get the rental car, and there was a car driving around, and it stopped in front of us, and you can always tell, you know what I mean? You can always tell Americans. There's something about them that you can just tell, right? So this American couple is in the car, the woman rolls down the window, and the guy says, do you know where, I don't know, I don't have any idea. It was like some place to drop the car or whatever. And I said, no, we just landed. And they said, literally, we can't wait to get out of this country. It's so horrible. Right? So this was our introduction to Italy. We had never been. We had been waiting and waiting to go, right? This is our introduction to Italy. Now, 10 days later, and this is absolutely the truth, 10 days later, we're in that same parking lot. We're dropping off our car. And we turn to each other at the same exact moment. And we said the exact same words to each other. What country were they in? That was it. It was absolutely incredible. And the whole reason that I launched into this silly story is because somebody that many of you might be familiar with once said, the world is as you are. And this is what happens. If you want to be a good traveler, be somebody who's totally open, who's smiling, who's anxious to engage, and you will have the most amazing experiences that you could ever not even imagine what those experiences will be. And especially in countries, every country really, because people are so friendly. And one of the greatest, most moving experiences of our life was meeting a woman in a little town above Verona, Chiero, and she's on a little bench, right? And she's elderly. She's whatever. I shouldn't say that because now I'm starting to think elderly. Okay, well, anyway, she was a little older, and we didn't know any Italian, and she didn't know any English, and literally within a half hour, she had invited how many of us, right? There were you and me and Rachel and the kids, right, to her house to eat, right? And nobody spoke Italian and nobody spoke English. We each spoke English, she spoke Italian, and it was just absolutely amazing. And these are the kind of things that Christy was there, so she knows.
She had the most amazing almond tree outside her door. Do you remember the almonds?
I don't remember that. That's amazing.
They were delicious.
So those are memories that are priceless, right? You remembered that almond tree, and she's the one who also taught us how to, find chestnuts, for the first time. So that was awesome, right? Yeah. So anyway. All right, so these guys are going. It's very interesting to watch everything that's going on here, guys. I have to say that.
It's guys cooking,
yeah, and you know what? It's really good because probably some of you. Wait, I just heard that again, right? This gentleman just put salt. See, those people who are listening on the radio, right? They don't have any idea what's going on sometimes, so I'm trying to explain to them. And what happened was Ed just put salt in the pasta water. And again, there was a groan, Pete, okay, Pete put salt in the pasta water. And there was a groan. Now that I'm not sure about. I'm not going to repeat that one. Anyway, but the point is the salt, you can find all kinds of different input when you search and you can go to the people who are traditional cooks, and you can go to people like Kenji Lopez Alt, who wrote, the most definitive book now on, modern cooking in terms of the science of cooking for the home cook, or you can do modernist cuisine, any of those things, and everybody's got opinions. And one of those, the standard opinion is, the traditional opinion is, you salt the water until it tastes like the ocean. That's what it tastes like. So those of you who are sighing, that's what it's supposed to taste like. Now, of course, then you can talk to some of these other guys, and they'll say you can start with cold water. You don't have to start with hot water. You don't have to put a lot of water. You don't need a lot of water. Okay, I'm with the traditional people in terms of lots of water, lots of salt, no oil.
I approve. Yeah, no oil.
For cooking spaghetti.
Well, wait, you have to come over here and tell us this falsehood. Come on. come on over here.
Okay, so who's boiled a big pot of water and then taken a pound of spaghetti or 2 pounds of spaghetti and put it in the water, and if you're not there, stirring it and waiting till it cooks down a little bit and breaks up.
That's what you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be there.
Doing, but if you're doing something else, if you're watching a football game, you want to put a little olive oil in, so what it does is naturally separates all of that pop.
This is a wholesome show. Okay, does your mother put oil in her water?
No, this is the first time I have to say so. It's okay.
I think I felt Liliana kind of tense up, when she saw that. It's okay. There's room for when it comes to cooking, there's room for everything.
Cooking.
Right?
So
Exactly.
it's okay.
There's room for everything that way. And you know what? Your reasoning is absolutely sound. I love that. But stay there and be with your food. That's what I would say, because that's what also lifts every dish to another level, is the attention that's put on it. And I love the fact that you're sitting there stirring your sauce, and you're making it, you're putting everything Ed into that sauce, and that's awesome. Pete's the same way. Now, what are you doing? You're putting on gloves. Why are you doing? Come over here. Come over here.
This is going to be very scientific. We're going to make vegetarian meatballs real quick here.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Cool.
And I'm going to leave Ed to kind of sauteing.
Okay, do you need somewhere to do it so that people can see this, or what?
Yeah, let's do that. And Ed, you could pull those out and saute those onions real quick.
Okay.
And then we're going to get a bowl here. And basically what we have is tofu.
2 pounds of tofu.
2 pounds of tofu. Whose tofu is this?
This is Jake Gratzon's
We
tofu.
just take
It's
it, and that's why we have gloves from the hospital. No, I'm kidding. They're cooking gloves. And we're going to mix up this tofu. And it begins to, it's like working with, ground whatever. It's ground tofu.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see.
Yeah, you're just breaking it all up with your hands. You're using a firm tofu to begin with.
Using a firm tofu to begin with. And then what we're going to do is grab some parsley, because, parsley is a great thing in meatballs. And mix it up. We can pass that parsley down too on that end. Lots of parsley.
Parsley and then breadcrumbs.
We're going to put some breadcrumbs, and then we have some. Do we have some ground cheese around, or someone can grind a little cheese?
You need what, Parmigiano or what?
Any.
Or you want some mozzarella di bufala or what?
Oh no, we want the
hard cheese.
The hard cheese.
So
actually, I have some right here.
There's a big
There's
hunk.
some ground right in here.
Yeah, that's it right there. Okay.
Right here. It's a little rough ground, but it's sort of a
Wait.
rustic knife.
Wait, is that Parmigiano Reggiano or not?
That's an Asiago.
No. Would you grind that Parmigiano Reggiano,
All right.
please?
Okay.
I'm already frightened already, so let's.
He's already trying. Okay. So we're gonna get some other stuff here and make this happen really nicely.
All right, that'll be fantastic.
And so, what other things we're gonna put into this? It's right now is. This is a.
And we also see we didn't want Liliana to go home totally freaked out, From,
Okay, this is a Italian. It's Italian seasoning. It's got thyme and basil and oregano and marjoram in it. We have fresh ground pepper, was just ground tonight. And I'm going to put just a little bit of red pepper from last year's garden. It's not a super hot pepper, but it'll help perk up the tofu a little bit.
More?
A little bit more.
So we're going to use.
And also, we're going to put fresh ground fennel seed, and it's just
That's
fennel.
wonderful.
Fennel does wonderful things to everything.
And what's great about that, using the fennel seed is a lot less expensive than getting fennel flowers. Though, if you grow your own fennel, you can use the fennel pollen,
And
and get it off of there.
And this is spike without salt.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, you're using tofu.
Very, very Italian, yes.
So if you use tofu, very good. You need spike.
Okay, so what we've got, I just want to go over it for everybody so they because this is not a show where we do recipes very well. So we have 2 pounds
We're
of,
putting a little bit of Bragg's in it. I mean, this is a new age community. So a little liquid amino acids.
Yeah.
That's in everyone's pantry. And, you know, the other thing we're going to do is anyone opposed if we put a little binder in it? Some organic egg. Huh?
No, do it.
Is that okay? Yeah, this is.
Okay, so I got to go over this. Now listen closely so I don't do anything wrong here. So because people are listening on the radio and they're not able to
Okay.
see this, all right?
So
we've
this
got
looks just like grandma, except it's not pork and beef. Okay, when they're mixing, doesn't it? Anyone who had parents that made, you know, a meatball, and then, you know, if you remember, they would just crack it, a couple eggs to put in there. What? As a binder.
So let's go over the ingredients. We have 2 pounds of tofu, right?
Right out.
We have firm tofu that you actually took and you broke up with your hands into very small pieces so that it looks like ground beef, essentially, basically
Right,
like
right.
that. And then we've got 2 eggs to use as a binder. We've got about a cup of Parmigiano Reggiano, about half a cup of parsley, fresh parsley.
Yeah.
We've got some Bragg's liquid aminos, which adds that umami flavor to this type of dish, which is great. If you're not making it with meat, this is a great ingredient to use to add that umami flavor to it.
Right.
And then we also have some dried red pepper
Right.
and dried thyme, dried marjoram.
Well, we have dried Italian seasoning.
Okay, dried Italian
Which has
seasoning.
a medley of probably basil, oregano, thyme, marjoram.
Okay.
Oregano.
All right. And fennel.
And fennel. Fennel, yes.
Okay. Do you toast that fennel first or not?
Before
you grind it?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. That'll make it more like a curry type fennel.
You could.
I don't know if the Italians do that. Do they toast their fennel?
Do Italians toast their spices a lot? There.
Not a lot. No, actually no. We like to use fresh.
Yeah, you like to use fresh instead of dried, right?
So now
yeah.
we're seeing it. We're going to make...
And spike, right? And spike,
so
yeah.
now what we need, this is a little rustica. So we're going to put a little bit, you can either put breadcrumbs or cornmeal in it to kind of help it bind a little bit more. I think we're going to put some panko breadcrumbs in it
Okay.
and help it bind a little bit more. And if it gets out of control, you can then add a little water or oil.
So that's about a half a cup of panko breadcrumbs.
Yeah, we're going to see how that
Yeah.
goes.
And you can just work with
a
it.
shot of olive oil in here too?
No, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Excellent work, Ed.
Okay, good. Okay, that's excellent. A little bit more, Ed. A little bit more. We need a
little
little bit
more
more.
olive
You
oil.
get okay. There we go. That's excellent.
Okay.
We do facials also.
Well, I think, don't they have to make appointments in advance for the facials? Yeah, okay, so.
Okay, so these now. So now let's put these onions in here.
So basically what you were also doing was you were sauteing some vegetables to add to.
I sauteed some red onions, and that gives it a little bit of. If we had more time, we could also add some chopped parsley to it. I mean, chopped celery, but we're not going to do that because we're running out of time. But
And are you using the red peppers in there too, or not?
I'm putting red peppers in for a little flavor, and that'll just.
And what about those mushrooms?
All that is going to go into the next dish that we're going to do really quick after this dish. I'm going to show this dish real quick, and then someone's going to start making the meatballs for me.
And how are we? Tell us what the preparation is going to be in terms of you're making the meatballs, and how are you going to cook them?
Well, what we can do is we're going to fry them. Just lightly fry them.
In a little bit of olive oil.
A little bit of olive oil. And then we can, if we don't have time, we'll just fry them really well and serve them with tomato sauce. We may not have time to bake them in tomato sauce, but if they
So
fry
normally
them,
you would bake them.
Normally I bake them.
Fry them first and brown them, and then.
Yeah,
bake
but we can just fry them really well, and they'll be fine. It's almost like they're Italian falafels.
Okay. Italian falafels. I like
Italian
that part.
falafels. Why don't you pass me that cornmeal?
Sure, I'll be glad to do
Oh,
that.
and another thing you can do, And I don't know, we're going to put a little bit in. And this is a trick that's often used in real Italian meatballs, is you grab, let me put this right up here, some bread, and you put bread in it. And that makes it kind of more unctuous in some ways. So you just take bread and you cut it up and you mix it in. I don't know if people knew that, but a lot of meatball, of course, that's probably Italian restaurants cheating, you know.
A lot of filler, right? Yeah. It's like the crab cakes that you can barely find the crab in, right?
Right. So we're going to put a little organic multi-grain filler in here, just to kind of, you know, because it's sort of like an Italian restaurant, right?
I actually think that probably we could say this is one of the more unique shows we've done. You know, so that's good. I mean, there's something to say for that.
Bread taste. Sweet. Sour. So good to taste.